I'm Tony Sklar with bnetTV. We are here at the Broadband World Forum in Amsterdam for 2012. I am having the pleasure of speaking with the dual hat, Jean-Pierre Bienaime from Orange and the UMTS Forum. How are you today, sir?
Very nice, thank you. Very fine.
Excellent. Listen, for all the people out there in bnetTV land, why don't you give us a brief overview of the UMTS Forum, your position at Orange, and of course what you're doing here at the Broadband World Forum.
Yes, the Broadband World Forum, so I had a presentation yesterday at the Wireless Broadband Summit, which is an important track at this conference. And my presentation was how to monetize strategies for mobile broadband and LTE spectrum. Of course, I had also an eye on what can be interesting for my company, for Orange, as an operator, either with my colleagues, Orange colleagues, speaking there, here and there, and also catching interesting topics presented by other operators or actors of the market.
It's a great conference. It's really come a long way in the last number of years. Moved from Paris to Amsterdam at a bigger venue this year. There's a lot of vendors, operators, and other ecosystem players here. We've all been talking about some really interesting rolled out and in the market topics like connected home. Picking up legacy assets in the copper arena and making them speedier, getting better throughput into the home. What is the position of the UMTS Forum here? When it comes to broadband and the throughputs, and the European Commission on making sure everybody's getting connected?
I think in terms of course, at the UMTS Forum we have, let's say, two main streams. The first one being continuously supporting as a market representation partner of 3GPP, so supporting this roadmap of mobile broadband evolution towards LTE, of course, but LTE advanced, and always more capabilities, spectrum efficiency, less latency, and so on. So we are full supporting this roadmap. And also always very focused on spectrum. You know that this year took place in Geneva in January, February, the World Radio Conference 2012, where we were present, of course. And now we are focused on the preparation of World Radio Conference 2015, and particularly wearing the messages of course, more spectrum for the mobile industry, coping with tremendous growth of traffic and data traffic, but also harmonization of existing and future spectrum. So, for instance, it's important for us to that Europe, and particularly the European Commission, be mobilized on the digital dividend lower bands, 800 megahertz, 700 megahertz harmonization. And an example of that is that last week I was present at the FutureCom conference, which is the biggest conference in South America, based in Brazil, once a year. And we, as the UMTS Forum, we issued a press release to support Mexico's recent decision to align their 700 megahertz on the APT, Asia Pacific Telecommunity Band Plan, which would represent a much more solid basis for harmonization for the future lower band, let's say, second digital dividend in the 700 megahertz band.
So, when we talk about the different megahertz bands, obviously, the big flavor of the year is all talked about is LTE and the deployment of that 800 megahertz band level. And even within that megahertz spectrum, there's different bands. And, the duopoly in the United States is a good example of, the types of players that have pushed out the other bands within the 800 megahertz spectrum. Causing a lot of tier 2 operators in the United States to start to have to fight for their space, which sort of brings us back to the idea of what's the matter with UTMS? Absolutely nothing, right? HSDPA, then HSDPA plus, UTMS. Those spectrums are very efficient. They can provide some fantastic throughput. We know that. There's nothing wrong with 21, 25 megabits per second, even 15 megabits per second is fantastic. I'll tell you this right now, we're at a Broadband World Forum conference in Amsterdam, all talking about fantastic speeds. I can't get probably more than 256K out of my hotspots. So,
yes, it's a good question. Yeah. It's a good point. It's a good point, and it's many years. It has been many years that we are a bit astonished comparing the theoretical speeds, theoretical throughputs, all the throughput that is on your PC, right, and the real throughput you have is the reason why. And at the UMTS Forum we were quite attentive on that, to announce real end-to-end quality of service and throughput, and not nominal throughput at some part of the network. So end-to-end QoS and throughput is something very important to deal with. Is the reason why when you hear about, for instance, mobile backhaul, it's a part of the problem and part of the solution. That's to say,
it's a great coined phrase.
Yes, for instance, if you schematically divide the networks in three parts: the core network, the transport, and the radio access. If you are performing in the radio access, but if your transport is not so performing, so you will not have the end-to-end throughput that you have at the radio access, for instance, and reciprocally the core compared with the transport. So is the reason why, and here at the Broadband World Forum, it's interesting that the two worlds, fixed and mobile, are gathered here, because you see that the efficiency of mobile is also conditioned by efficiency of fixed, those transport networks that will constitute the backhaul. It's the reason why the migration from ATM to Ethernet, for instance, is quite important to ensure very nice transport networks.
So everything you've said, I completely agree with. I think it's great in theory for sure. There is some kinks to work out, and let's talk about some of those hurdles, those challenges. What can we do to make the ecosystem, or what can we do to make the totality of data movement more ubiquitous and more efficient in little baby steps? What's the next baby step that we got to take?
In terms of ubiquity, yeah. In terms of
getting the transport to the next level at a faster pace.
I think, as I told you, it's important to go towards this carrier Ethernet implementation first. Second, of course, it's important to go towards this all IP with the simplified architecture that will be offered by LTE. So, but you know, we don't say, for instance, either at Orange or at the UMTS Forum, we don't say we have to immediately launch as soon as the technology appears. In my company at Orange, for instance, we say more, we prefer to be first time right than first time. So first time right means to launch, for instance, LTE with enough affordable devices, with devices that are enough multi-band and multi-mode, and so on. But of course, the quickest we can ensure this next generation implementation, the better it is, and particularly towards this all IP flat architecture that will bring more fluidity in the network, much less latency, and more quality of service.
Jean-Pierre, What are we going to see from the UTMS forum here this next year?
So at the UMTS forum, as I said, we are focused on the topic of my presentation of yesterday. That's to say, preparing the World Radio Conference 2015 with more spectrum for mobile industry and more harmonization in spectrum, and not only in Europe or in one or several regions of the world, but worldwide. And if Europe can have a leading role in that harmonization, it will be the best, of course. Then we, of course, follow up. We support the progress of LTE roadmap. I listened to a presentation today from my colleagues of 3GPP, and they present the current works on the release 12. So if you think that LTE advanced, that is the true 4G, was officialized at ITU beginning of this year as release 10, and we already are working on release 12, and the first wave of LTE was release 8. So you can see that this progress are continuously made, and more and more functionalities are introduced. More requirements are introduced in those releases for the benefits of the end user, for the benefits of the customer in terms of new functionality of broadcast on LTE, of introduction of small cells, introduction of higher frequency bands, etc. So I think we follow up this quite carefully also.
Fantastic, Jean-Pierre. Thanks very much for taking the opportunity to speak with us. Always a pleasure to speak with you and somebody from the UTMS forum, and I hope we get a chance for an update again in the future.
Thanks a lot to you.
Thank you. I've been speaking with Jean-Pierre Bienaime from Orange and the UMTS forum. I'm Tony Sklar here at the Broadband World Forum in Amsterdam for 2012 with bnetTV.